name is Christy Nurstheimer. I'm a teacher and writer from Overland Park, Kansas. I'm excited to share with you my very first picture book. It's a biography about Buck ONeil. Buck ONeil was a baseball player for the Kansas City Monarchs in the Negro Leagues. I was fortunate enough to get to see him live, and I became an instant fan. And as a teacher, I've often wanted to share his story with my students. Many adults in our area know and love Buck, but I want kids to get to know and love Buck too. So let's get started. The Greatest Thing, a story about Buck ONeil, written by Christy Nurstheimer, illustrated by Christian Paniagua. This is the logo for the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum, and this story is actually endorsed by them. I was able to work closely with them and get a lot of insightful information about the Negro Leagues and Buck ONeil. And last year, it was the 100th anniversary of when the Negro Leagues began. They had several different celebrations planned. Some had to be postponed because of the 2020 year and will be rescheduled for this year, but there were some also special celebrations that they were still able to do. This is the title page, and I'm really excited to be sharing Christian Paniagua's art with you. He's an amazing illustrator, and he has two daughters like myself, and the little girl over here to the very right is actually modeled after one of his daughters. Another thrill and honor for me was to be able to meet Buck ONeil's niece, Dr. Angela Terry, and she actually wrote this dedication to the memory of a champion who attained his dreams while inspiring others. I'm so lucky I got to play the greatest sport there ever was, baseball. When I was a small boy, my mama made me a ball with socks tied around a rock. I played for hours and hours until it was too dark to see. That's just what you did when you were baseball crazy like me. My papa played too. I loved going to watch him on the field. He even let me be the bat boy. I hammed it up with the older guys, and they liked having me around. When they threw the ball, I'd catch it with my big hands. Baseball was an American pastime, and everyone enjoyed keeping up with the different teams. But back in those days, everything was segregated. Black and white people couldn't go to the same schools, eat at the same restaurants, stay at the same hotels, or even play on the same teams. It was tough and unfair, but that's the way life was back then. My papa subscribed to all the Black newspapers so we could read about our favorite teams and players. I wore out the pages from reading them so much. Afterward, I'd run outside and pretend to be those players. When I saw Black players on those pages, I started to see the possibility of me becoming a baseball player too. The most important thing I needed to do was practice, and I did whenever I could. I worked hard in school too. When I found out a high school was being built in my neighborhood, I hoped I could play baseball there, but my grandmother told me only white kids would be able to attend. I cried and cried, but she calmed me down and told me someday things would change. When they did, I'd be ready. I kept working hard at my studies and even harder at baseball. My principal, sweet Miss Booker, saw some potential in me. Where I lived, Black kids could only go to school through the 8th grade. But Miss Booker taught us at night and during the summer so we could get a proper education. As luck would have it, I was able to get a scholarship playing ball in a different town where Black students could attend. It was hard to say goodbye to my family, but they knew I had to chase my baseball dream. My dream finally came true when I started playing in the Negro Leagues. I earned a spot playing first base for the Kansas City Monarchs. Now that was a time. I played with Satchel Paige, the best pitcher ever. James Cool Papa Bell was the fastest man I'd ever seen. We called him Cool Papa because he was so easygoing. I didn't do too badly myself. I hit for the cycle, a single, a double, a triple, and a home run, all in one game. What a day. I also played in 3 All-Star games. We won 4 pennants and the Negro Leagues World Series. I will never forget those days on the team. Black baseball was fast, not like white baseball. We'd steal bases, bunt, and slide into home. Folks loved to gather at the barber shop to talk about the exciting games. Of course, life was still hard because of segregation. The Negro Leagues had some of the best athletes in the country, yet we weren't allowed in many hotels or restaurants. I was just happy playing, even when I had to eat stale sandwiches on the back of our team bus. Finally, Branch Rickey, an owner of the Brooklyn Dodgers, took a chance and signed Jackie Robinson to play in the major leagues. This opened the door for all of us. We celebrated and celebrated. It was difficult for some people to accept, but Jackie was tough. He proved himself. It was an exciting time. I never made it to the majors as a player, but I did become the first Black coach in Major League Baseball with the Chicago Cubs. Later, I scouted for the Kansas City Royals. As more Black players signed on to the majors, the Negro Leagues began to dissolve. I didn't want those players to be forgotten. No, sir. They were a part of history. Yes, history. And here we are at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. There's no better place for you to be, right here, right now. I am honored to have been a ball player in the Negro Leagues because we helped change the world. We paved the way for Jackie Robinson and others. We showed everyone it was time to move past the color of a person's skin. Some asked if I hated people for the way we were treated back then, but I never learned to hate. I can't hate another human being. In fact, I feel love, agape, man, an overflowing love. Step back in time to learn an important part of baseball's history. Do me a favor now. Come on, sing along. The greatest thing in all my life is loving you. The greatest thing in all my life is loving you. That's right. I will never stop loving baseball, and I will never stop loving you. John Jordan Buck ONeil, Jr. Now, the next couple of pages are the author notes or back matter. And I don't have time to read all of it right now, but I did want to highlight a couple of interesting paragraphs for you. And on this page, the second paragraph starts off at the age of 12, Buck began playing on a semi-pro team called the Sarasota Tigers. And I know that some of you are 12 or close to 12, so I think it's pretty remarkable that that is when he started his baseball career. At the age of 94, Buck was one of the oldest players to bat at the Northern League All-Star Game. For over 80 years, Buck devoted his life to baseball. So I think that's pretty remarkable that he started that young and continued on until the age of 94. Because of Buck's determination, dedication, and immense spirit, he became known as one of baseball's most beloved ambassadors. In a time of segregation and prejudice, Buck persevered. He always showed love and acceptance. Buck not only made the game of baseball better, he spread his joy to anyone who met him. And over on the right-hand side, it has a long list of acknowledgements because there were several people that I worked with to make this project come true. This is the last page of my story, and as you can see, I used several different online resources, and I read a lot of books about Buck ONeil, and that was really one of my favorite parts, was doing the research and meeting the people at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum and Dr. Terry to receive more input about the story as I was writing. I don't know about you, but when I finish reading a biography, I always like to get online and see some actual photos of the person I just read about. So I'm going to be sharing with you some pictures of Buck. So this slide right here shows Buck in his Monarchs jersey and in his Chicago Cubs jersey. The picture in the lower left shows Buck with his wife, Aura. In the story, I mentioned how Buck had a very exciting day when he hit for the cycle, but he also says that that was one of his best days ever because that was when he met his wife, Aura, on that same day. And he and Aura were married for 51 years, and Aura was actually a teacher in the Kansas City area. And then this one over here, Buck did a lot of appearances as he got older to tell people about the Negro Leagues Museum. And as I mentioned, to make appearances also batting. This slide right here shows a picture of the Wrigley Field in Chicago, where Buck was the first African American to coach in major leagues. And as you can see, he has a smile on his face, and I think that's how he always carried himself throughout life. This slide right here shows a couple of things that have honored Buck's legacy. On the left-hand side is a bronze statue of Buck ONeil, which is located in Baseball's Hall of Fame in Cooperstown, New York. There is also the Buck ONeil Lifetime Achievement Award, which honors someone whose extraordinary efforts have made the game of baseball better, just like Buck did. And over to the right is the Buck ONeil Legacy Seat, which is behind home plate in the Kansas City Royals Kauffman Stadium. And at every home game, an honored recipient gets to sit there. And this is someone who has significantly contributed to the Kansas City area. The top two photos show a picture of the Buck ONeil Baseball Complex in Sarasota, Florida. Buck was born in Carabel, Florida, but he grew up in Sarasota, Florida. And this is a baseball complex named after him. In the lower left-hand corner is a combat ship located in San Diego, California, and the name is the USS Kansas City. And throughout the whole ship, there's Kansas City memorabilia. And the galley is named after Buck. It's called the Right on Time Cafe because Buck was known for saying, "I was just right on time." And in the lower right is a picture of the Buck ONeil Bridge, which is located in Kansas City, Missouri. Every year on Buck's birthday, November 13th, there is a big celebration in the Kansas City area. And this year was no different, especially since it was the 100th year. They had the streetcar wrapped with the Monarchs logos and Buck's jersey and Buck's jersey number 22. And they even had some of the Ride KC bikes wrapped with the Negro League Baseball Museum logo. And some of you are noticing that KC heart. A lot of people want to give Charlie Hustle the credit for that KC heart, but actually that heart appeared first on the Kansas City Monarchs jersey in 1942 when they won the Negro Leagues World Series. And this last slide was Buck ONeil's pride and joy, and that was being able to be one of the founders for the Negro League Baseball Museum. That way, the memories of all the players can be carried on and on for many years to come. Once you first go inside of the museum, there is a statue of Buck ONeil right here, and it shows him in that managerial position as he is kind of on the outside looking in. He was also a manager for the Monarchs as well. And then you can see another picture of the Field of Legends at the Negro League Baseball Museum. They have a giant field full of many of the wonderful legends from the Negro Leagues. I hope my story has encouraged you to find out more about Buck ONeil. Buck grew up during one of our nation's hardest and most difficult times, segregation. It's hard for me to even imagine such a time. Although today there are still many struggles concerning race. But just like Buck, we can show our love and kindness to get us through. And I just know that if Buck were here today, he'd want us to sing his song. And I know this is virtual, so teachers, you're going to have to help me out and have you and your students sing after me. Let's do this for Buck. The greatest thing in all my life is loving you. The greatest thing in all my life is loving you. That's right, I love you, and I may not even know you, but I do. I think there's something special inside each and every one of you, and I hope you spread that specialness out into the world and go out and play some baseball. Thank you. Bye bye.